Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Sternberg. I run a company called Sternberg Clark. We supply entertainment for events, and today I'm giving a presentation entitled Entertainment Better Safe Than Sorry. Now, before we start, if you could just use your mobiles and go onto that URL, because we'll be using that very shortly. So, here we go. There we go. Entertainment, better safe than sorry. What do I mean by that? Well, we get a lot of people typically phone us up and go, look, we want entertainment that's new, that's different, that's wow, that people have never seen and done before. What suggestions do you have? So we then send them back loads and loads of suggestions of things that are different, new, wow. And then people go, yes, really very good, but our bosses are a little bit worried. It's a bit too much of a risk. We'll have what we had last year. So the question is, how can you book acts that are a little bit different, that are a little bit new, without taking too much of a risk? So you can be both not sorry and safe, or maybe not. Well, you can certainly be safe and you can book something that's a little bit interesting. And this is sort of how. Before I get into the presentation, I want you to go onto that URL that I just said at the beginning. A little question should pop up, which is, do you remember the first gig or concert you went to? Just a quick yes or no will do for this. I'll come back to that at the end. So, do you remember the first gig you went to? Shut your eyes, remember that day when you went to your first gig. Excellent. Everyone done that? Good. So, do you know the three waiters? Anyone's booked the three waiters? Has everyone heard of the three waiters? Pretty much heard of the three waiters. Okay, I am old enough to remember when the three waiters first started. Now, when the three waiters first started, no one would book them. Everyone thought they were too much of a risk. The caterers hated the idea that these people were going to suddenly appear as catering staff and burst into song, because they wouldn't be able to deliver the dishes and people would get upset. Clients, the whole idea of flash mob didn't exist. People thought, not on a stage in the middle of the audience, unexpected. No, we don't want that. We don't want the three waiters. Let's book our magician cutting someone in half. Now, of course, the three waiters is the safest act you book, the most known act out there. The act hasn't changed, it's just people's perception of the act. And therein lies the message. There is, of course, within new, always a risk. But if one is never prepared to take a risk, we would still be there with magicians cutting a woman in half, or indeed booking the three waiters. So how do you make acts that are a little bit different? Well, one thing that we do is do combining acts. Now here we have this Felipe, who is an acrobatic act. He sort of climbs high up onto the ceiling. Normally he performs to a backing track, which is great. This was in Banqueting House, and here we had a string duo who'd never performed with him before. Really, really simple, but it changed an act which was really quite good into something that was really quite special, just simply by combining something that's a little bit different. We've combined a whole range of things. Drag acts with roller skating girls, for example, was another memorable time we booked. So, just by choosing acts that you know are safe and combining them with another act that you know is safe, you can create something which is quite unique and still very safe. The other thing is, so much of entertainment is stereotypes. And I think for all of us here, it's a good thing if we can to avoid the stereotype. And indeed, in avoiding the stereotype, again, we create something new. By stereotype, so for example, you might well picture mariachi performers as all male. They don't need to be. Harpists. Has anyone ever booked a male harpist here? So David Lloyd at the Ritz is a male harpist. We should be booking more male harpists. We should be booking non-white harpists. We should be booking non-white classical musicians. Not for tokenism, but because they're very good, and because it gives you at your event something which stands out from the norm. So we're very keen always to challenge expectations as to what conventional acts should be like. String quartets, again, typically 4 girls playing string instruments. We're doing our best at the moment to create string quartets or string trios with non-white men, or just a variety of people. Again, it creates... And the other thing, of course, is repertoire. So, well, on string quartets these days can play hip-hop, they can play R&B, they can play whatever you like. It doesn't have to be the Four Seasons, it doesn't have to be the Beatles, it doesn't have to be show tunes. So the look, the repertoire can make a standard act into something quite different. And really, there is no risk there at all. Okay, using the venues. So there's a huge number of amazing venues in London. And the way you use these venues, again, you can make a standard act, an act that's pretty conventional, into something that's a little bit different. I must admit, though, this video is a little bit of a cheat, because this act is not really quite standard. So this was the Heliosphere, which is a woman at the end of a hot air balloon in the middle of York Minster, which was probably the most amazing thing we've ever done, I think. Mainly because that act normally performs outdoors, and to actually be able to use the height of that place to have that type of act was amazing. But there are other ways of using venues. So, for example, in the Natural History Museum, using the steps and having a marching band march down the steps as opposed to just have them in the museum. Using modern, high-tech, funky acts in old venues. So you don't need to, just because you're in an historic venue, use old historic acts. That contradiction between the old and the new works very well and makes something stand out, even if it is a standard act. Think about acoustics, using a choir in the Natural History, in Hampton Court, in the Great Hall. That acoustic changes a choir into something that is truly special. So again, just thinking about a venue and how you can use that venue to augment a piece of entertainment, to turn it into something special. Trust your instinct. I think if you're event planners and you see stuff that you think is good and you want to book it, you should trust your instinct. There are always people out there who do just want to have what you had last year, but if you want your events to be memorable, and surely that is one of the key facets of having an event, is for it to be memorable, then to a certain extent you have to take a little bit of a risk. You can't just merely reproduce year on year exactly what you had. Well, you can, but to make it magical, I think you need to do something. This was the Throwbacks, which was an act which we had on Britain's Greatest Dancer, but actually they'd done a lot of work in the corporate market beforehand. There hadn't really been that much street dance. This is, again, at Kensington Palace. Now just imagine a street dance act in Kensington Palace. It was great. Again, the venue made it even greater because it was so unexpected. Right, let's quickly go to our survey results. So the question was, how many of you remembered your first gig you went to? And the answer, coming shortly, is 8% said no, which means 92% said yes. Whenever I go and present to people, notably corporates, that is my first question I ask. And the reason for that is people often think of entertainment as that slightly luxurious add-on that you have in an event. I'm slightly biased, of course, but for me it's possibly the most important thing at an event. Who remembered the first concert? Did you remember your first concert? What was your first concert?
I won tickets to the Smash Hits Poolers party when I was about 13. So it was the most, you probably remember Smash Hits.
I do.
The most exciting thing ever. You know?
Yeah, who was on it?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. New Kids on the Block.
Wow.
Roxette.
Wow, final countdown. Amazing. You?
Chris Cornell from Audioscape.
Where was it? but you remember it well? You remember?
BNC.
Wow! And where was that? That's a good first concert.
I think Wembley, but I'm hazy on that.
So my first concert was an initial show. I was Bob Dylan at Wembley, and that was with UB40 as their backup act. The fact of the matter is that entertainment sears memories into your mind in a way that nothing else can. It has been proven that if you look at the brain, the right hemisphere, which is to do with music, comedy, laughter, fun, enjoyment, is the bit that creates memories. So if, as I said, events are about memories, that's the side you need to stimulate. Yes, of course, you need your spreadsheets, you need the organisation, you need everything right. But the stuff that people are going to remember is the stuff that engages that part of the mind. So for me, my message, if I have one, and I'm probably not meant to have a message, but my message would be, not necessarily through us, but just book more entertainment, because I promise you, it will be the thing, booked right, and particularly if you book memorable acts, that people remember, not the day after, not the week after, not the month after, but years after, because that's the power of entertainment. And that was my presentation. Anyone got any questions? Yes?
Your favourite act that you booked?
My favourite act I booked actually was a very, very long time ago. And this was a huge risk. It was an act called A Man in a Bath, which was fundamentally a strip act, really, although he didn't quite take everything off. But it was the most beautiful act. It was in a Victorian bath filled with water. But if you imagine he's on stage and you're there, you couldn't see the water, you just saw the bath. Until the moment he plunged into the bath. And with the lighting, the water came up and he did acrobalance on the bath. It was just, and it was done somewhat typically to It's Raining Men, slightly camp, of course. But it was, we used that when we started at places which now probably wouldn't allow us to do it, but it was an act that no one who ever saw that would forget. It was genius. And also, the thing about most acts, like most presentations, is they go on far too long. The best acts just know when to stop. And that act was exactly right. It finished before you thought, when is this going to finish? It was great. So that was my favourite act.
Acts for corporate events?
Pardon?
What are the most popular acts that you book in corporate events?
At the moment, still the ubiquitous acoustic strolling trio, I would have thought, because they're easy, because they're no risk, they don't have any equipment, you don't have any issues with sound limiters. Yeah, simplicity is a great thing, I think, because you've got so much to worry about. If you have acts which have huge technical requirements, there's always slightly more of a worry than if you have an act that's simple. I think the other thing, to be honest, is because of the pandemic and the fact that acts obviously didn't earn a lot of money for a long time, they have had neither the time nor the money to develop new acts. So I think new acts will start coming out again next year. I think this was a year for catch-up, really, I think. Yes?
How could the industry change in the sense of if you're booking more usually involving celebrity acts, but it's always a way that you have to make an offer to a celebrity and then wait for the offer to be accepted or declined. And you're at that sort of mercy of no listed prices. The industry surely would benefit from changing that.
I agree, and that's one of our bugbears. It's very, very, very frustrating. And there's not only that, is often the client has to pay the money in advance into some account, not knowing yet whether the act will do it. I mean, of course, they get the money back if the act won't do it, but it's like paying for something you don't even know is going to happen. And that amount of money, if you're bringing big celebrities, can be hundreds of thousands of pounds. I don't know. I suppose from the celebrities' point of view, they get so many people who are time wasters that it's just a way of filtering out time wasters. It's just, if you're serious about this, you're going to put up the money, you're going to go through the opposite situation. I think that's their thing. You remember that wonderful documentary about that festival, Fire Festival, yeah? Do you know what that Fire Festival was for? The actual purpose of the Fire Festival? Well, possibly. But the Fire Festival was meant to promote a platform that they were developing, which was about booking celebrities directly online through a platform. So I think the idea behind that, which was sort of a good idea, was that you then didn't have to go through the offer situation. You dealt with their management directly online. But we all know where's that ended up.
We also know, I mean, even dealing directly with the management, you still have to do that. You still have to make an offer. You can't just say, well, how much are they
No.
Does the industry not have to push back and say...
I still think that for a lot of people, they regard the corporate bit as a sort of a slightly insignificant bit of what they're doing. They're more into their TV shows or their film rights or their appearances on TV and all that type of stuff. So for them, I think it's more their attitude. They don't take the corporate market very seriously. They don't regard it as... But I'm having that conversation all the time. I think you're right. It would be great to change that. Definitely. It's very annoying. Anyone else? Questions?
Well, I don't know then. What's the next hot ticket out there with your agency? Who are you pushing? Who's the next big thing?
I still think there's a lot to be done with technology. Like mapping and just being able to use real with technology. The only way we could earn a living in the 18 months of pandemic was doing online entertainment, which frankly was shit, actually, really. It was Emperor's New Clothes. We all said how amazing, fantastic, online, wonderful, but actually it wasn't, and I don't think it ever will be. But you can use technology somehow with live on stage and to get it to interact and to create really interesting stuff. Obviously, there are cost issues. But the other thing I'm really interested in is, in the old days, and I mean really old days, entertainment and sales used to go hand in hand. So if you think of the medicine man in the old days, really old, they used to go around to towns with a huge lot of entertainment, and the only point of the entertainment was to draw people to the people who were selling their new medical products. And in a way, we need to view entertainment as a way of engaging people, of not just this fluffy stuff that you can have a good time with, but it's a way of getting people emotionally involved in something, with your product, with your service, not just to get pissed to at the end of a Christmas party, I think. You can do that as well, but multifaceted entertainment. But that's, yes?
Just a question, part observation, part question, I guess. I work with a lot of corporate clients, and I've realised as I'm sat here that I'm guilty, like a lot of other planners, of not myself spending enough time thinking about it, because I've got so many other things to deal with.
Of course.
My corporate clients, particularly marketing teams, are completely overwhelmed, really at all times.
Of course.
They're the ones that've got the fear of the management.
Yeah, of course.
But also they've got that kind of mental overwhelm. So if you're saying to them, why don't we, do this cool thing before or after dinner or whatever we're doing, you can see them sort of going, they're sort of like stuck in this, oh my God, that's another thing I have to think about, and I can send them a web link, but then it's just got thousands and thousands of videos. It's sort of a bit too much.
No, that's right.
What would be your tip for getting them from maybe they haven't done that before to let's think about it, but without that sort of immediate overwhelm?
The easiest way, of course, is just trust. So, we have clients, as we all do, who will just trust you. You say, I've seen this act, they're fantastic, book it, and they will, and it'll be fantastic. Clients you don't have that relationship with, it is then slightly trickier, because you're right, you can show them videos, which if they're bothered to watch, in no way really are going to encapsulate what the act is like in real life. I mean, this is what I mean. I mean, it goes back to the virtual entertainment. Watching an act on a screen does not give you the reality. It gives you a demonstration of their skill set, sort of. But it doesn't show the charisma, the energy, the passion, all those ineffable things that actually, the things that entertainment is about. Okay, you can dance, you can sing, but actually when you think about it, it isn't that. Well, it is that, but it's also the person. It's the energy, for want of that term. And that's sometimes how I think we should sell ourselves. We're like a battery. The entertainment provides the energy for the event, and all events need the energy. And you want to go from your event with more energy than you had when you arrived at the event. What else does that? Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
You said that when things were all virtual, it didn't really work. But going forward, things are still going to be kind of hybrid, and that's still going to be a consideration. Is there anything that you would kind of advise, or just steer clear, or have you seen things work well?
Personally, I don't think it's a thing for myself. Hybrid. I know it's a thing, but I don't. I don't actually think the technology exists yet to do it properly. I mean, it's fine for Zoom calls, but the one thing that worked, to give it its due, is Magic. Magic worked brilliantly. Magic Online was great. I mean, I had a mate of mine who was on it early doors, March 2020, and he did like, I don't know, it was 1,000 gigs. He did you could do a 15-minute gig here, followed by a 15-minute gig in South. It was amazing for him. But music and cabaret, we did it all. We did this drag act, doing drag bingo from Mexico, where we drew limes out of a thing instead of balls. I mean, it was just really surreal. It's not. It's not. I've got stories to tell about it. That's maybe the only entertaining thing, but did anyone have a really good live entertainment? All those parcels you got sent to the post that got lost, it was like, no. It convinced me that what we as humans are about is this. It's about going to football matches, it's about going to concerts, it's about going to parties. I think we knew that subconsciously. We now know it very, very consciously. And I think it's good for our industry, because I think people realise just how important all this is, really important. Surely you must have a third question. I'm going to use you as a plant in future, actually. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Thank you.